Gauranga. Hare Krishna, good morning from Sridham Mayapur, dear devotees. We're having our daily adventure in Srimad Bhagavatam. Śikṣā-guru Nitai Gaura Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Jaya Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Shaiva Narotamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Viraya Vede Ramayanishchaiva Purane Bhagavate Tata Devante Chamadye Chari Sarvatra Giyate Mukhaṁ karoti vācālam bandhum gayate girim yat kripatamaham vande śikṣā-gurum vinataranam Paramananda he Madhava Madhya Buchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinta Name Vandaveva Hari Kori Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Mote Dada 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 Mote Dada 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 Mote Dada Dada Dharma Projita Kaita Voja Paramonia Matsunam Sitam Devyam Vastavam Bhakta Shivadam Tapacharon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamune Katekim Vapara Ishvara Sadhya Vidya Varujate Chukati Shushu Dishtakshana Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. This is our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're reading from Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam, the king of all literatures. This is Canto 3, Chapter 29, the description of pure devotional service. And today we're having our fifth session. I think there's going to be at least 2 or 3 more, maybe 4 or 5, on these texts 11 to 12. Madguna Shruti Matrena Moyi Sarva Guhasaye Manogatira Vichina Yata Gangam Baso Mudo Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya Nirgunasya Hudaritam Ahoichaka Vitaya Bhakti Purushottame Ahoicha Vyavavahita Bhakti Purushottame. Translation: the manifestation of unadulterated devotional service excuse me a moment, is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. It's easier for me. Please excuse me. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. We're reading from Srila Prabhupada's purport again. This is just a few sentences from it. It's a longer purport, but we read the whole thing in the beginning, and it's been a little intense trying to properly speak on this topic. Prabhupada writes, the basic principle of this unadulterated pure devotional service is love of Godhead. And Prabhupada comments in this very important phrase, which we want to speak more about today. Madguna, shruti matrena, means, quote, just after hearing about the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord, these qualities are called nirguna. Goradraganya gana gotra goloruharam Goranga guratama gopyara kopa briksham Gopala gada ratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshikavaram satatam namami Panchakopatarubhischa Kripa sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the Bhagavatam is taking us on a transcendental journey, a journey of consciousness, which began with verses speaking about devotion in the mode of ignorance, and then devotion in the mode of passion, and devotion then in the mode of goodness, which are all described as saguna bhakti, or bhakti under the modes of material nature. And now, in these verses, we're hearing something about nirguna bhakti. And in the course of our voyage, our journey, exploring this amazing world of Suddha Bhakti, we read something a few days ago from Jiva Goswami's Bhakti-sandarbha, where he says, Shraddhamatram hetur ityaha, that the cause of bhakti is faith alone. But we discussed that how many people, they have faith, but they go away. And we discussed different types of faith. There's lokik shraddha, or mundane faith. And there's paramartik shraddha, or transcendental faith. And different types of paramartik shraddha. One which is swabhaviki, is natural. Another which is balut padita. It means one is convinced by the preaching of the others, of other persons. And then in Bhakti-sandarbha, Jiva Goswami, we explored his discussion about the ruchi pradhan bhakta and the vichar pradhan bhakta, or devotee with a natural taste, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls Bhagavat Lila Madhurja Lobhamoy Shraddha. Faith which comes from hearing Hari Katha from a saintly person. And the second, the vichar pradhan bhakta, an intellectual devotee who's inclined toward logic and argument, which Bhaktivinoda calls śāstrartha avardhanamoy shraddha, and how these two are characterized and how they develop their faith. And we spoke at length about the vichar pradhan bhakta, and how through association with devotees, he develops faith, and then from that association, he develops some ruchi. And how important is that ruchi? And that is a discussion we want to continue in our next few sessions. And then that ruchi, Jiva Goswami says, is transformed into a taste for a specific form of the Lord and a particular path. Tad bhajana marga visheshe, a particular path of worshiping the Lord. And then when someone has this kind of taste, then naturally, Jiva Goswami says, Shri Gurut Ven Ashritat Shravanam Kriyate. They take shelter of one or more of these sadhus as Shravan Gurus in order to undertake a study of the scripture. And then we spoke about the 6 different ways that they analyze the Shastra. And it was a big discussion. I don't even want to try to cover on that again, but you could go to our last session if you want to hear more about that. And after hearing, then they come to the point of manan. After this reflecting on these 6 different ways, one or more, as we discussed, then they are able to destroy 2 types of doubt which may arise, a sambhavana and viparita bhavana. The first is that thinking that's just impossible. And the second thinking that it's just not true. And how that's destroyed by manana, by contemplation. And then Jiva Goswami explains the 3rd type of doubt, which is atma yograya gata sambhavana, or doubts related to oneself. Will I be able to actually achieve perfection? Will I, am I too attached to my false conception of myself? And this type of doubt, Jiva Goswami says, is vanquished by direct experience of the object of truth. And then we spoke, so this is how the vichar pradhan bhaktas, how they develop their faith. And then we spoke about the ruchi pradhan bhaktas, and they follow a little different course. They don't depend upon all that. They just hear the Lord's pastimes from sadhus, and they attain taste for them. This is a path which is generally recommended by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And this is what Krishna is speaking about in this verse, these verses, Lord Kapila is speaking about, in these verses from the 29th chapter of the 3rd canto, with the words, Madguna Shruti Matrena, which we want to speak a little bit today about. Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti-sandarbha, Anucheda 234, speaks about this particular verse that we're on today. And in particular, he talks about this compound phrase, Madguna Shruti Matrena, meaning just simply by hearing about my qualities. And Jiva Goswami says that it implies that such hearing is performed without intention of achieving any other goal. Very important thing. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say that all my disciples are pure devotees. And sometimes we may think, well, Prabhupada was really flattering everybody. How is that true? We know one devotee who was a sannyasi, and he left and later became a male striptease dancer. And so many different devotees who've had problems over the years. It's a little hard for me to accept that they were all pure devotees, but they were pure devotees. In Bhagavad Gita 9:30, Krishna describes Apichet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananya bhaksadureva samantrija samyagi vyasito isa. He speaks about the durachari sadhu. He's a sadhu. Krishna says, sameva mantavya, very emphatically, you must accept this is a sadhu. But he's a durachari. How is he a durachari? Because he's attached to other things. Well, then how is he a sadhu? Krishna says he's a sadhu because he's doing ananyata bhajan, he describes in this verse. Well, ananyata bhajan, doesn't that mean pure one-focused bhajan with nothing else? In his commentaries, Artha Bharshani commentary on this verse, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a beautiful explanation. He says, no, they're pure devotees, not because they have no anarthas, but they're pure because they're not taking shelter of karma, gyan, or yoga. And so in a similar way, Srila Prabhupada would say that all my disciples are pure devotees. Why? Maybe at least at that time they were pure devotees because they weren't taking shelter of any other process. They weren't taking shelter of deity worship. They weren't, of demigod worship. They weren't taking shelter of karma or gyan. They were simply taking shelter of bhakti. Jiva Goswami goes on to explain in Bhakti-sandarbha about this verse. He says that the phrase madguna shruti matrena, simply by hearing my qualities, implies that such a hearing is performed without intention of achieving any other goal. So this is a durachari sadhu. They may have some other anarthas, they may have some other problems in their heart, but if they're madguna shruti matrena, they just want to hear about my qualities, and they're doing that as a service. We should understand that hearing is a service. We spoke about this last night in our discussion with a group of devotees, and how hearing is the first service, and it's the best service. And if we don't do this service, we can't do any of the other services. And therefore, it begins Shravanam Kirtanam Vishwasmaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dashyam Sakyam Atmanivedanam. When we speak about Navavidi Bhakti, the 9 processes of Bhakti, it begins with hearing. Hearing is the foundation, because we hear from sadhu and we collect the bhav, the mood of that particular sadhu. So that's a service that we do in a one focused way, understanding that this is very pleasing to Guru. And we told a story yesterday about how Shukadev Maharaj was in Bhubaneswar, and he had some questions. Somehow he came to me. And he'd been there for a few weeks, and he requested if he could go to see our Guru Maharaj. And somehow Guru Maharaj there was 2 persons he would let in to see at any time. And one was the temple president, and the other was myself, because I was doing some Granta Seva. So he came and asked me. I said, well, certainly, Maharaj. And I went with him. And he was a very simple, childlike person, Sukadev Maharaj. He had a very simple question for Guru Maharaj. He said, Guru Maharaj, your classes are so wonderful. I'm appreciating so much. He said, but I don't understand. There's so many Western devotees here, and they're not doing any service. They're just hearing every day, sometimes for 4 or 5 hours. He's giving very long classes. They're just hearing. And why don't they do service? And Guru Maharaj looked at him with the kind of look I'd seen over the years that he appreciated the question, the simplicity and straightforwardness of that Vaishnava. And Guru Maharaj told him that, he said, Hare Baba, unless they hear, what service will they do? Hearing is the first service. If we hear properly, that's the foundation of all of our other services that we may do. And if we hear improperly, then we'll go off course and we won't understand the mood of Guru. So this hearing is a service. Jiva Goswami goes on to explain how the Lord is described in these verses, text 11, as Sarva Guhasaye, which he defines as someone who resides in the cave of everyone's heart. And Jiva explains this. He says that means that Krishna's living there secretly, and he's staying there. He's not going anywhere else. In the hollow, he says, that formed by the senses, which are made out of the qualitative aspects of nature. And because the senses are looking outward, the space in which Krishna is residing is imperceivable to them. Therefore, this is the meaning of Sarva Guhasaya. He's in his cave because you can't see him. Because we're Bahir-mukh janas in the language of Bhakti Vinod. We're looking outside. We're not antar-mukh. We're not looking inside. And Jiva goes on to say that the word matra in the phrase madguna shruti matrina, matra means only this, indicates that such hearing has no other purpose. And he says this confirms the causeless nature of the flow of the mind to hearing about the Lord's qualities. Similarly, the word avichina, unbroken, implies there can be no obstruction in the mind's flow towards such hearing. Thus, the use of the words ahoituki, causes, and avyavahita, unobstructed, is superfluous. It's not even necessary, in other words. Yet these words have been mentioned separately just to emphasize the transcendental nature of devotion. So, we've been hearing how it is that if a devotee has the quality of śaraṇāgati, He surrendered. Then dīkṣā kali bhakta kori atma samarpana. Immediately at the time of initiation, his body is completely transcendental, and he doesn't have to go through anishita bhajana kriya. He doesn't have to go through anartha nibritti. All of those things are removed for him immediately. Kleshadni, shubhada moksha, Rupa Goswami says, kleshadni, to indicate all those sufferings are immediately eradicated. But if we don't have that śaraṇāgati, as we've been hearing, because we don't have proper faith, then this trouble is there. So the Bhagavatam 11:29 describes tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyeta yavata matkata shravanadu va shraddha yavanajayate. Krishna speaking to Uddhava, and he speaks about this quality of shraddha. He says, tavat karmani kurvita nirvidyeta yavata. As long as you're not satiated with material activities. You've been married for 6 times. 6 times. I know one devotee, actually, I think he's been married 8 times now. Senior devotee, actually. You've been married so many times, but still, you look at a girl and you think, she looks really nice. Maybe this one will be different. We think like that. So, no problem. We're not the International Society for Sense Control or the International Society for Austerity Consciousness. We're here to be Krishna conscious. Krishna says that's okay. Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyeta yavata. He still is not satiated. He still has this desire. Maybe this one will be different. He has this hope. We have to become hopeless. There's no hope. It's not going to work. It's all going to stink. And from beginning to middle to end, it's all going to be bad. And that person, he says, very important, matkata shravanadova, shraddha yavan najayate. Najayate, they don't have faith yet, shraddha, in my kata. They don't have a taste yet for my kata. Then that person, tavat karmani kurvita, you have to get married again. You have to do. You have no other choice. My Guru Maharaj said once to a devotee, he said, you have no other choice. You must. You must do that. Until our faith has been awakened by hearing discussions of devotional topics, then we're still going to have some taste for things in the modes of nature. We'll have a taste for gyan, we'll have a taste for karma. And that preliminary kind of faith which is needed to overcome those things is Shastriya Shraddha. We need to develop that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur defines Shastriya Shraddha in his Amnaya Sutra. Shraddha to anyapaya varjam bhaktyam mukhi chitta vritti vishesha śikṣā-guru lakshana. He says that this Shraddha faith, it's a particular mental attitude directed toward devotion. This is Shastriya Shraddha. It's directed toward devotion. And the quality of this faith, the vishesh, the vritti vishesh of this faith is bhakti mukhi chitti. It rejects all other means of spiritual advancement. This is real faith, he says. And that faith, there's a lakshana or characterization, quality of that faith. Sa cha śaraṇāgati lakshana. It's characterized by the process of surrender. So then what is śaraṇāgati? Śaraṇāgati, he defines sa cha śaraṇāgati lakshana. Faith is characterized by taking shelter of the Lord and surrendering to Him. And until someone has this kind of faith, there's no chance that they're going to get a taste for hearing Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Until we get this kind of faith, which is characterized by śaraṇāgati, we may have a little shadow of faith. We may have a little shadow of taste. So Bhaktivinoda says that this faith then is the seed of the creeper of devotion. And after wandering Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi by Bhakti Lata Bij, by some great mercy, a fortunate Jeev, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, he may get that Bhakti Lata Bij, a seed of devotion. Now, in his Anvaya Sutra, text 8, Bhaktivinoda Thakur comments, and he quotes Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Sarva dharmam parityāga mamikam saranam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokṣayishyami ma sucha. I was thinking of this verse this morning. Yesterday, the last few days, or maybe a few weeks, I guess, we've been watching the Mahabharata. And sometimes you watch the Mahabharata and it's painful. Not just because of the stupid sound effects they have and the very terrible special effects, that's also painful. But sometimes even the story, it's like, and he fell in love with her and they were looking madly in each other's eyes and it was just true love. And you're thinking, hello, would you just get over it? Come on, what is all this fighting and everything? Where's the bhakti? We want to get to the bhakti. But we have to understand the purpose of the Mahabharata. The purpose of the Mahabharata is to draw people in who are attached to all this kind of fighting and sex life and things. And then the Mahabharata is a great thesis in the science of Dharma. There's so much description about what is Dharma, what is the proper wife, the proper husband, the proper king. All of these are elaborately, hundreds and hundreds of verses described in the Mahabharata. But hello, where is the bhakti? Interesting thing, first of all, about the Mahabharata. It tells you all about Dharma and all the rules and everything. But at the same time, throughout the Mahabharata, you're constantly being faced with crises of faith. That how is it that this person is a dharmic person, but he's acting in such a bad way? How is it that these people have to go through this? The Mahabharata in this way is teaching people, don't be so attached just to all this external dharma. It's there to draw them in, the external dharma. And then the heart of the Mahabharata takes place just before the battle of Kurukshetra in the Bhagavad Gita. And the heart of the Bhagavad Gita is this verse, Sarva Dharmam Parityaga. So in that sense, this verse is the heart of the whole Mahabharata. It's speaking so much about Dharma throughout the Mahabharata. And then Krishna in the Gita says, Sarva Dharmam Parityaga. Give it all up. Give up all that Dharma. And he doesn't say, give up all pop. He doesn't say, Sarva Papa Parityaga, give up all sin. He says, give up Dharma. It's an amazing thing about Bhagavad Gita. And this is only possible for someone who has a quality of faith. Because Krishna says, Mokṣayasya masucha, don't fear. It'll be okay. Sarva papebhyo, I'll protect you, mokṣayashyami, from all these different types of sinful reactions. In the Vaishnava Tantra, which is described and quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas in different places by Acharyas, there are 6 different divisions described of śaraṇāgati. And this alone, we could speak on this one verse for months and months and months with so much commentary from our acharyas. We're going to try to just touch on it a little bit today, just to give credit to it. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishya-titi visvaso gopti-tve varanam tata atmanikshepa karpanye sadvida śaraṇāgati. Sadvida śaraṇāgati. These are 6 different divisions of surrender. And the first is anukulyasya sankalpa, that whatever is favorable for my bhakti, I accept it. I may not like it. If getting up early in the morning before dawn and taking a bath, I may not like that. But if it's favorable for my bhakti, I accept it because I really want to make advancement. So faith alone is not enough. There has to also be śaraṇāgati. So this is what śaraṇāgati is. The first division, the first symptom of it is to accept whatever is favorable for my bhakti. The second is pratikulyasya varjanam, to reject whatever is unfavorable for my bhakti. And these are not just external things, like sometimes devotees, even to this day, I see devotees, saying, oh, women are Maya, or all men are Maya, or all marriage is Maya. Well, you're Maya. You're nonsense. Prabhupada was married. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was married twice. Many of our acharyas were married. Marriage is not bad. What's bad is independence. What's bad is thinking that I can only be Krishna conscious if I become like a renunciate. So whatever's favorable for bhakti, we accept that right away, even if that's marriage, or maybe that's renunciation. For the particular person, it's going to differ. That should be accepted. And they reject pratikulya shivarjanam. Whatever is not favorable, I reject that from my bhakti. Sometimes someone can't reject it. They're very, very attached to certain things. Prabhupada said, just like the fan, you unplug it, you turn it off, but the blade still keeps moving. So don't worry. Nama parada yuktanam namanyeva haranchigama vishranti payuktani tanaveta haranisha. Padma Purana says, even if you're chanting with nama parada, keep chanting. Don't stop. Don't stop the process. And when you're doing those sinful activities, Jiva Goswami says, offer them to Krishna before you do it. I know this is not very nice. Someone may not be a vegetarian. That's a really radical thing. And I know, Krishna, you're not going to accept this, but still, somehow, I'm thinking of you at this time. I'm such an animal, I can't stop eating this terrible thing. So please, I'm saying something over it. I know you're not going to directly accept it, but still, there's some benefit in that, because you're remembering Krishna. You're thinking of Krishna when you're doing that activity. And then we're going down the road where we're going to speak about in another few sessions, I think, about this crying of the soul, this crying out that I'm so far away, I'm so fallen, I'm so attached to eating the stool and nasty things. Why am I attached to that? So anukulyasya sankalpa, first quality of surrender is accept whatever is favorable to bhakti. Second is pratikulya varjanam, to reject whatever is unfavorable. The third is rakshishya titi visvasa, to have firm conviction. Visvasa means firm conviction that Krishna will always protect me. He'll definitely protect me. I don't have to worry about the COVID virus. Krishna will protect me. Now, how will he protect you? Once there's a story that someone was saying, Krishna's going to protect me, Krishna's going to protect me, Krishna will always protect me. And he's walking down the street, and all of a sudden there's a big commotion, and many people were running the other direction toward him. They said, run, run, there's a mad elephant. And he said, you people don't have proper faith. Krishna will protect me. Krishna will protect me. And people kept running, and they kept saying, man, you got to go, there's a mad elephant. Krishna's going to protect me. Why are you people so materialistic? And then the elephant started running toward him. And on top of the elephant was the mahout, the elephant driver, who was no longer able to control him. And he saw this person standing in the middle of the road, saying, Krishna's going to protect me. And the mahout said, run, get out of the way, get out of the way. And the man said, Krishna's going to protect me. And then the elephant picked him up in his trunk, threw him down on the ground, and stomped on him with his feet, and squished him into something we don't want to discuss, because it wasn't very nice looking. And he died. And later it said that he came before the Lord and said, excuse me, that's not fair. You said you would always protect your devotees, and you didn't protect. And Krishna told him, no, I protected you first. I sent those people telling you, get out of the way, and you didn't listen to them. And then I sent the mahout, and the mahout was shouting at you, get out of the way, and you didn't listen to him. So sometimes we have a childish idea of what it means to depend on Krishna's protection. That, I don't do all these things, it's all bogus, and I don't need to do all this protection, I don't need to do this thing or that thing, I'm just completely surrendered to Krishna. But maybe Krishna's coming to you in so many different forms and warning you, hey Baba, be careful, behave like this, otherwise something's going to happen to you. So, rakshishya titi visvas. We should have firm conviction Krishna will protect me. Goptitve varanam tata. Then we accept that Krishna is goptritve. He's going to definitely, he's my guardian, he's my master. He'll give me whatever it is that I need. I have full conviction in this. Atmanikshepa karpanye. Atmanikshepa means full surrender. That's another symptom of śaraṇāgati. Full self-surrender. Atma. Atma means the self. Atmanikshepa. And karpanya. Karpanya means humility. This is also a symptom of śaraṇāgati, of surrender. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it says, Sarana lana kore Krishna atma samarpana. Krishna tade kore tat kale atmasam. When a devotee fully surrenders to Krishna's lotus feet, then Krishna accepts him as one of his confidential associates. Okay, very nice. Now we've gone a little further on our journey, right? We spoke about Shraddha, we spoke about śaraṇāgati, and now we're coming to another fork in the road. Jiva Goswami in Bhakti-sandarbha discusses this śaraṇāgati. Tatra yadyapi śaraṇāpatyaiva sarvam siddhyati. He says that you can attain all perfection by śaraṇāgati, by surrender. Tatapi, but vaishishya lipu shaktas chet tata bhagavach chastro padestrinam. If you're really desirous of relishing the mellow of bhakti, then Bhagavan mantra padeshan trinam va Shri Guru charanam nityam eva visheshata sevam kuryat. If you really want, and it's nice you've gotten śaraṇāgati. That's very, very good. And you can get so much perfection from that, he says. Sarvam siddhyati. You can get all siddhi from that śaraṇāgati. But, tatapi, if you want this Bhagavat Bhakti, if you want to relish the mellows of devotion, then you should specifically, constantly, he says, nityam eva. Nitya means constantly. Nityam eva vishesha sevam kuryat. You should constantly serve the śikṣā-guru, who teaches the śāstras related to the Lord, and the dīkṣā-guru. And who is the dīkṣā-guru? Bhagavan mantropadesha dristam. He's the mantra upadesh. He's the person giving mantra and instructions in that mantra. And Jiva Goswami says, Tat prasado, only by their mercy. Tat prasado, he sva nana pratikar dusya janartha. These dusya janartha, these very terrible anarthas. Hano parama bhagavat prasada siddhocha mulam. Only by Gurudev's mercy, only by the śikṣā-guru, the dīkṣā-guru's mercy, can someone please the Lord and be freed from all these anarthas, which are dusya janartha. They're very difficult to give up by any other means. Therefore, he says, Hano parama bhagavat prasada siddho chamulam. The mula, or the main cause of getting this divine love and divine service, is Parama Bhagavat Prasad, to please the dīkṣā and the śikṣā-guru. And Jiva says that all these statements, they praise the faithful and steady service of Guru. So I'd like now to, because I'm afraid that some people may die at this time. We've been speaking so much philosophy. I want to give some example of this from Orissa, a very wonderful example from the life of one of the greatest Vaishnavas in our line. And that's a devotee whose name was Rasik Murari. And Rasik Murari, he appeared a little after the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the village Rohini Nagar in Orissa in the year 1512 Shaka. His father was Achyuta Patanayak, and his mother was Bhavani Devi. At the time of his birth, the priest gave him the name Rasik, but his parents called him Murari. It's a common thing. We don't understand this very much sometimes in the West. Actually, we do, but sometimes devotees get upset about it. People may have many names. It's called Daknam. We were speaking about this recently. You may have many different affectionate names. Someone may call you Banana, or they may call you so many different, they may call you bad words or something too, depending on your relationship with the person. So during his childhood, Rasik Murari grew up, and many saintly persons were coming to his house. And Rasik Murari, this Mano Guna Shruti Matrena, he's a good example of it. He became so attracted. He developed this ruchi for hearing the topics of Krishna. So much so, once he was hearing the Gopi Geet, being spoken by the mouth of one great devotee named Mandanacharya. And this little boy at the time, Rasik Murari, fell down on the ground unconscious. Now, he studied Sanskrit grammar and poetry and drama, astrology and philosophy and so many things. He also studied Sridhar Swami's commentary in the Bhagavatam, and then he studied the Vaishnava Toshini commentary in the 12th canto. That's by Srila Sanatana Goswami and Jiva Goswami. And he heard about the renunciation of Rupa and Sanatan. And he became so impressed with all that he left home. And he started traveling as a young man to all the different holy places throughout Orissa. This is Madgunashruti Matrena Mai Sarva Guhasaye Mano Gatir Avichina. Mano Gatir, his mind, Avichina. His mind became so very, very attracted, so very, very attached in a continuous way. Avichina Yata Gangam Baso Buddha, just like the Ganga. And so he left home. And he went traveling all the different sacred places in Orissa. Many, many sacred places are still there today. Many ancient places from long before the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And also places from some of them from the time of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, but also places from the pastimes of Mahaprabhu. And so after some time, though, his heart became so anxious to receive Mahaprabhu's mercy. And then Krishna one day appeared before him and told Rasik Murari, you go to the village of Durenda and take shelter of Shyamananda. We've been to this village, a very wonderful place. Shyamananda Prabhu's deities are still there today. And so, meanwhile, Shyamananda had heard about Rasik Murari, and so he went to visit him. And Shyamananda Prabhu gave initiation to Rasik Murari, and he became known as Rasikananda. And later, on the order of his guru, he married two ladies, 2 or 3, I think it was 2. So Rasik Murari, Rasikananda, he was so attached to serving the Vaishnavas. And this is real ruchi. And this is the real path. Madguna Shruti Matrena. We want to hear from the devotees. We want to please the devotees, and we please them by hearing nicely. We want to hear from a Shravan Guru, but we're going to please them by hearing nicely. So Rasik Murari wanted to serve all the Vaishnavas. And in the, what is the book? The Bhaktamala of Nabhadas, it's described there that he would serve them in a very grand way. He would regularly do all kinds of festivals for the Vaishnavas and feed everybody in a wonderful way. Rasik Murari, Rasikananda, used to keep a pitcher of water in his house. And that pitcher of water, every day he would get up and offer obeisances to it. And he would circumambulate it. And he would offer incense and flowers to that pitcher of water. And he would meditate on it every day. What was that pitcher of water? That was a pitcher of water that was full of water that had washed the lotus feet of the devotees who had come to his home. This is the conviction of Rasik Murari, of Rasikananda. He loved the Vaishnavas so much. And the festivals that he would perform, devotees said they were indescribable. And he was doing all this to worship his spiritual master because he knew my Gurudev will be pleased, not just if I jump up and down and advertise my devotion to him, but if I serve the Vaishnavas. And so during his festivals, he would spend the entire day and night glorifying Krishna and his Gurudev. He would feed all the devotees. It gave him so much pleasure. And sometimes these festivals would go on for 10 or 12 days or even longer. It's not like a festival we may have sometimes. Okay, from 4 in the afternoon until 6 o'clock at night is going to be the festival, and that's it. But it would go on for 12 days nonstop. And 12 days nonstop means nonstop. They were having Astapahari Kirtan, 24-hour Kirtan the whole night. We see this sometimes still to this day in Orissa, some festivals like this. And the whole time there was devotees coming and going. It was just a wonderful sight to see. And one day, there were so many devotees taking prasadam, and Rasikananda, he had a group of disciples, persons, both Siksha and Dīkṣā disciples, who were hearing from him. He wanted to test them. So he told them, now you go, I want you to wash the feet of all the Vaishnavas who are present there. and bring me the water. And so they did like that. They washed the feet. Excuse me, our Gurudev says, we got to wash your feet. Just give me your feet, don't argue with me. And they washed everybody's feet. And then they brought that water to Rasikananda Prabhu. And he drank a little bit of it. And he said, this is not good. Why isn't it doesn't taste so first class? There's something wrong with this water. And he asked him, did you wash the feet of all the Vaishnavas? He said, yes, Gurudev, we washed everyone's feet. You didn't miss the feet of any Vaishnava? He said, well, Gurudev, there was one devotee, he had leprosy on his feet. Leprosy is really nasty stuff. If you've ever seen a leper, if you go some places in Jagannath Puri, you can see them to this day. They have pus coming out and things, and it's different colors, and it smells really bad. There was one devotee, we didn't wash his feet because he had leprosy on his feet. And Srikananda said, who told you not to wash his feet? I told you to wash everyone's feet. Nonsense rascal. Go back and wash his feet. Bring me the water. Yes, Gurudev. And so they went touching that Vaishnava's feet and washing his feet. And then they brought that water to Rasikananda Prabhu. And he drank that water and he began to cry in ecstasy. This is the real stuff. This is so good. And then he started distributing it to everyone else because he had this quality of faith. Our faith is not just in Shastra, but our faith has to be there in the devotees. So we'll stop there. We've gone a little way longer than we're supposed to go. I hope I don't get in trouble from anybody. If anybody has any... Lynn has commented regarding marriage over and over again. She said, wherever you go, there you are. That's cute. Thank you. And Subal Sham Prabhu offers his pranams. Thank you, Prabhu. And Rajesh Prabhu. And Krishna Balaram Prabhu, nice to see you again. Our old friend from South Africa. Lynn has commented, thank you for that wonderful teaching regarding the Mahabharata. A wonderful explanation, a very skillful means for reaching as many people as possible in order to bring them to the Lord and plant the seeds of devotion to those who are ready for it. In his Ragvartma Chandrika, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur has described the nature of Rag Marg, or the path of Raganuga Bhakti. And he said that there's certain things which are beneficial for it and certain things which are detrimental. There are certain literatures which are very good for it, the chief of which is Srimad Bhagavatam. And there are other literatures which are not very good for it, particularly certain Upanishads, which speak about Gyan and Yoga. Those literatures are not so good for it. Krishna Kund. Certain literatures which are good for it and certain literatures which are not. Hare Krishna Havi Prabhu. You must know Havi Sachaitanya Prabhu. Yeah, a very famous person in South America. We're here today with Sachaitanya Prabhu, and we get to hear a little sweet Spanish, Espanol every day from him when he's going out the door. Thank you for taking part, Prabhu. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says some literatures, like Srimad Bhagavatam especially, or Goswami literatures, are very favorable for bhakti. Then there's others which are detrimental. Literatures which speak about the oneness of the soul and the Lord, that's detrimental to bhakti. And then he says there's other literatures which are neither favorable nor detrimental. They're middle of the road. And one such literature he mentions is Mahabharata. It's not bad, but it's not necessarily real good either. It depends on what you make from it. For devotees in our line, we read Mahabharata especially because we want to be able to discuss it with other persons, and also it helps us to understand some of the history of things, and it helps us understand the background of the Bhagavad Gita. But the Mahabharata is not our favorite literature. Our favorite literature is Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, if anybody else wants to share what they're walking away with today, we'd like that, or perhaps some questions, but primarily we like reflections on what you're walking away with. Onkar Prabhu's says, can anyone have complete śaraṇāgati at time of initiation? It seems so difficult. How should we progress? Well, this is something we want to continue in our discussion. It is possible to have complete śaraṇāgati at the time of initiation. That's ideal initiation. Generally, very honestly, it doesn't happen. So it seems so difficult. So how can we progress? We have to practice Vishad Yoga, or the yoga of lamentation. And that's something we want to discuss probably in a few more sessions, if you want to stick around for that. That Vishad Yoga means that Bishad is a compound word. It's two words in one. Bish and Ada. Ada means to accept. Bishad together means lamentation. And that's the title Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan is given to the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Bishad means lamentation, but Bish means also poison. And Ada means to accept. So Bishad means lamentation, but Bishad also means to accept poison. And the poison of my miserable condition. The poison of my fallen state, that I'm full of anarthas and I can't control my senses and I'm doing all these nonsense things. And Jiva Goswami speaks about this in Bhakti-sandarbha. My Guru Maharaj spoke about this. Is Atma Krandana. This is the path what Jiva Goswami calls near, not cheating. Yeah, niskapatya bhajana. Or niskapatya bhajan means bhajan where there's no cheating. It means being honest and accepting my miserable condition. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Anybody here, Sachitanaya Prabhu, you have some reflection on what you're walking away with? Maybe a question.
Thank you, Prabhu. You were talking about faith, and it seems like our literatures are filled with a lot of challenges sometimes, testing our faith. And the example there's so many, for example, devotees, when they speak and they give an example of something to support their statements, and like the one you just gave now, this at the end of your class, about the devotee who went to wash the feet of someone who has leprosy. You go, come on, hold on. So, and of course, then you can go on like thinking about other things in the past times when King Chitraketu was married to 10 million wives, and on and on and on and on. And then it's like, where is that going to stop? So these examples are, sometimes can break the faith of many people. Some that are mean for some people and for other people, no. Can you just reconcile this? And one have to know the art when to speak this, to who you're going to speak this.
Yes. We don't go and tell brand new people on the street, and here's a book, it talks about this guy who married 10 million wives. And they may have a little bit of a doubt about that. How did he live? What kind of city was it anyway? 10 million wives, it's a little crazy. He must have had a lot of a lot of headaches and quarrels, I would think. So we should understand the difference between faith and belief. We may believe in something because everybody else tells me. That's we would call lokik shraddha. That's belief. But faith is a transcendental thing. And faith, in one sense, is not even dependent upon materialistic proof. I don't know. I remember personally when I first read the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam. And I grew up with the lunar module. I had a little a model of the lunar module that I'd gotten, and I had books on the because I was present when they so-called went to the moon. I was totally into it as a little boy. And one of my favorite books was called Red Suns and anyway, it was a book about evolution and about the Big Bang. And that my father was a science teacher, and I was into all that stuff. So when I came in contact with the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, I started reading it, and it was it was kind of like having almost like an out-of-body experience, looking at myself, reading it, and I thought, you don't have a problem with this? This, they're saying they didn't go to the moon and saying this and this. You don't have a problem with this? And I thought, no, I don't have a problem with it. because I just put it in another category, that this is something I can't understand. And people, to this day, I'm not very big, I like some aspects of our philosophy, but if you want to talk to me about the nature of the universe and distances and all that stuff, I check out. I just can't, I just don't understand it. Partly because I don't take all of it literally, at least in an empirical way. So I put it in that kind of category. So perhaps by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, I had some quality of faith in Srila Prabhupada, in Śrīmad Bhagavatam. It wasn't just belief. So that quality of faith is needed, and that comes when we hear properly, when we have association with the Vaishnavas. And then we hear what's really important. And for me, I'll just comment on this, and don't get me going on it. I really don't care about the moon landing. I really don't care, practically one way or another. Sometimes I saw a pamphlet once some temple had made of important aspects of Krishna consciousness, and they had vegetarianism, they had reading Bhagavad Gita, they had reincarnation, and they had, we didn't go to the moon. And I was a little disappointed with that, because there's some pretty good evidence that they went to the moon. And even if you want, I've studied this thing, and I don't want to argue with anybody about it. If you have a strong belief in your whole Krishna consciousness based on that belief, then just turn off your computer right now. Don't listen to what I'm about to say, because I don't want to disturb your mind. But Prabhupada didn't always say that we didn't go to the moon. Sometimes Prabhupada said they went to the moon, and all they did was bring back rocks. And Prabhupada criticized it. Other times he said they didn't go to the moon, but they went to Rahu. They went somewhere. And reading over, I studied this a little bit. And again, if this disturbs someone, then I don't want to disturb your faith. But I should point out that our faith shouldn't be so weak. If it's weak, then it's just belief. If our faith is so weak that we can't handle discussing NASA's refutation of the idea that we didn't go to the moon or this or that, if we can't deal with that, then that means we just have blind faith. We have belief. So I marked, going over this with Srila Prabhupada, that his point was not something about, I don't know what you call that, astrological, planetary geography is a word for it. It wasn't about astronomical geography. What's the word for it? Okay. That wasn't his purpose, to establish it, but his purpose was to say, who cares? What do you want to go to the moon for anyway? You can't really go to the moon. And 100% sure, whatever thing they did, wherever they went, they did not go to the moon that's spoken about in the Śrīmad Bhagavatam, which is full of plants and life and so many different things. Maybe they went something else. Maybe they were cheated by some very powerful persons. Whatever. I can't understand that. And my faith is not dependent upon that. I just put that in another category of something that's a little beyond me right now. I'm not a great scientist like Sariputta Prabhu or someone who can deal with that. I just put it in another category. But when I read what Srila Prabhupada said, like an easy journey to other planets, his point was not that do we go to the moon or not go to the moon? His point was, who cares? What do you want to go to the moon for? You want to go to the spiritual world. That's what you want to do. And again and again and again, that was Prabhupada's purpose. But we don't see the main purpose. We just see some external thing, and we want to glue to that. And if you don't believe we didn't go to the moon, then you don't have proper faith. And your whole Krishna consciousness becomes based on that thing, which I'm sorry, I find ridiculous. So there's a difference between faith and belief. And even if you can prove to me they went to the moon, it's not going to bother me one single bit in what Srila Prabhupada said. So there's a difference between faith and belief. I hope that helps your question. Anapayani Radha, were you here with us today? Can you tell us what you're walking away with? Or maybe you have some questions.
Yes, thank you so much for this class and this comment on Sachida Anand Prabhu's comment. It was really interesting also for me. I have a reflection on this as well. I really like the statement which you read. I don't know if it's from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that Shraddha is particular mentality directed towards devotion. So I never heard this in such a way. So this is interesting. And another thing, I appreciate this comment about Mahabharata, how the purpose is to attract as many people as possible, as Lynn commented also. and it's all about dharma, but at the same time there are so many exceptions, like exceptions and dharma, and the heart is Bhagavad Gita, and the heart is you give up your dharma. It's interesting, yeah. Yes, thank you so much for the story about Rasik Mohan. Yeah, Rasik Murari, yeah, and it's interesting. And I have a question about.
Question for you.
Okay.
If someone offered you some water to wash the feet, lotus feet of a great Vaishnava, but he had leprosy on his feet.
It's a big question. I'm sorry, I don't have that kind of face transcendent. Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting. You also said, just a second. You said, Shraddha. No, until we get the face, we will not get a real taste. And yesterday you told, when you explained there's two types of devotees, like who is begin their path. Ruchi Pradhan, yeah, they begin with the taste, but it's not really taste, as I understand from this point. So can you just comment please on this?
Why does the Ruchi Pradhan Bhakta have Ruchi and the Vichar Pradhan Bhakta not have Ruchi? Because to get Ruchi, we have to serve the Vaishnavas. That comes from service to the Vaishnavas. And if you're not serving the Vaishnavas, even you may be reading the books and you may be contemplating things like the Vichar Pradhan Bhakta, but you're not going to have that Ruchi. So the Ruchi Pradhan Bhakta is doing service to the Vaishnavas by hearing from them in a simple way. And therefore he gets Ruchi.
So, and he's getting some Ruchi. It's not like, it's not like you said
He may
that.
not be rolling in the ground, tears coming out of his eyes and having all this stuff.
Okay. And I just wanted to say about this moon things. I also was thinking when I was reading this book about this, the small book, first Prabhupada's book, what's the name in English? This about planets. Easy Journey to the, yeah. And I also was thinking that he's kind of saying that you said that who cares? This is the point of Prabhupada. I also was thinking that Prabhupada maybe stressed the point that so you try to do to go on another planets by your own forces, but it's not the way. It's not the way. For me, it was this thing that's
the main point Prabhupada was making. Okay. Shama Priya, do you have anything you're walking away with? You want to share? Krishna Kun? Yeah? Okay, here's Krishna Kun, and we're going to have to finish because we're 20 minutes late.
I just say one sentence. The point that most struck in my heart was that śaraṇāgati, by śaraṇāgati you can attain all siddhis, but if you want bhakti, Bhagavad Bhakti, then that comes from pleasing your dīkṣā and śikṣā-gurus.
That's a very wonderful discussion. And so we're starting to warm up the topics. We've had a lot of philosophy. And now we're going to get into a little more nectar in the next few sessions, I hope. So we'll see. So we'll be back. What is today? Today's Sunday. We'll be back again on Wednesday. And tomorrow is Lord Balaram's appearance day. And so I hope we're going to have a special Balaram Katha here, but not from myself, from someone else. And I don't think we'll be live streaming. But for a few small group of devotees in the evening, we're going to have some Balaram Katha. If you're interested in that, you could contact us. Okay, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gwa Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Vanchakalpadurubhishcha.